Hello guys, this is Jerry speaking. Welcome to LJPCBM episode number 555, and today we reacting to Purple Rose Podcast, episode 39. Rosemary Wells, who was best known for the boring offer of Max Ruby, and we react to this beginning in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Hold on, turn it down. Come on, we need to load this, man. Excuse me. Oh, come on. What? An error. Oh, hold on. One moment. Okay, press. Okay, it's showing me it's an error. Okay. There we go. There we go. Got it.
I'm Carrie Stinson, and my journey through life has been quite an adventure. For over 20 years, I played Barney the Dinosaur on tour, and 7 seasons of the hugely popular TV show, Barney and Friends. Now, my journey is to bring together friends and guests from all over the entertainment world for inspiring and at times amusing behind-the-scenes conversation. I'm Carrie Stinson, and this is Purple Roads.
Oh my!
Welcome to Purple Roads. I'm Carrie Stinson, and this week we have author, illustrator, probably known for Max and Ruby, Rosemary Wells. How are you, Rosemary?
I am just fine, Carrie, and delighted to be there in Texas, one of my favorite states. Texas buys a lot of books, and so Texas is always very popular with authors. Texas is great. It's got a fabulous library system, and I was just there last year in the winter time and had several appearances. I love the state of Texas. The people are so friendly, and it's a beautiful state. It's really great. It's a relaxing place to be.
Yeah.
Well, I'm here in Fort Worth, and you were here in Fort Worth.
Really? She's at Fort Worth? Oh. Excuse me. Sorry I'm in the season like that because I have allergies. Over this morning, but really? She's a Texan? Really? Over that boring Max and Ruby franchise. But anyway, let's continue on.
The visits you made, and as I recall, you had a great reception here in Fort Worth.
And I was there last winter, I think in December, and it was terrific. It is an undiscovered gem. I've been to Dallas many times, but never Fort Worth. And Fort Worth is a walkable city. You don't have all those highways in the middle of the city. And it's just great. You can get anything you want. The food is good. It's friendly. And like most of Texas, I really like it.
Well, I know the library was excited to have you, and I think, didn't you have a really great turnout?
I had a terrific turnout. It was on a Sunday, and it was wonderful. Librarians were all terrific people.
Wow.
The kids were great. And that is a #1 prime library, one of the best libraries in the country. And I left them some of my artwork. So you can see my artwork right there in Fort Worth, the original art.
Wow.
That's so exciting. I kind of want to start out with that. So did you start out as an author or an illustrator? How did that all come together?
I started out so many years ago, it's almost hard to remember, 45 years ago.
Wow.
I started as an illustrator. I'd been to art school, and I knew how to draw. And I started out actually as a book designer working in publishing, and I did that for about 5 or 6 years. And I found another illustrator to be who became very good friends, Susan Jeffers. And she
Susan! Whoa, whoa, whoa. 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 Repeat that again one more time.
to be who became very good friends, Susan Jeffers.
Susan Jeffers? Hold on. That was my last name. Lou Jeffers is... Really? There's a Susan Jeffers in town? Oh God, it was like Lou Jeffers in style, man. there's an LJPCBM, and now there's a SJ. Oh God, look at me, look at me, look at me. Okay, Rosemary, look at me. I was Luke Jeff. I'm Luke Jeffers, and I was here for the beginning, from 1990s till now. I was born in the mid-90s, and my dad's name is Chris Jeffers. I'm like, there's a Southern Jeffers? Come on! Okay, move on. We'll add that to the post-credit scene. Let's continue on.
And she and I started a book design studio. And I began to write because writing is really my greater strength and sharper talent. But I've done okay with the illustration, and both are a great joy and a great blessing.
Did you start out to be to use children's books as your subject matter? Was it your idea to be in children's books, or is that something you fell into?
I fell into it because I was at the time I married very young, and I was putting my husband through architecture school.
Wow.
And I had to have a good job. So in those days, he made $100 a week in publishing, which is not very much, but it was all I knew. And I had started out as a book designer, and I landed in the Macmillan Children's Book Department. So that's what I started to do. I just thought, this is for me. I can do this. And so it turned out I could.
Yeah, you've done quite well. You've done quite well with it.
Well,
do you feel children is an talk to me a little bit about the audience of writing for children and the response that you get working with children?
Well, that's a difficult question because I don't directly, take my books to classrooms full of children. I do when I visit a school, and I always get a good reception. In order to write for children, you have to have an inner voice that is just right for them. And where it comes from, I don't know. There are a lot of people who are smarter than I am and have a lot more exposure to children than I do, who don't have the voice. You either have the voice that's right for children or not. And I find that I do have that voice. And so I know how to do it. It is not about going and talking to children and reading to children, although those are really important things to do. But in order to write stories for children, you have to just have the voice.
You know, I found with my years of experience with working with children and entertaining children that the authenticity is so important. They can tell if you're talking down to them, but I think being authentic to them is so important. Have you seen that in your writing?
Oh yes, because the kids all tell me, and their parents tell me, that my stories come right out of everybody's family life. And somehow I have an instinct to do that. I don't know why. It's a talent, and you can't explain that. I think of a little girl in my daughter's fifth grade class long ago, and this child could open her mouth and sing like Andrea McArdle on opening night in Annie. She just opened that mouth and she could sing up a storm. Now, why? Why was it that this child could do this and her older sister had no way of doing it? It's because some of us are given certain specific abilities, whether it's to play tennis, to teach, to be a nurse, to tell stories to children. My father was a writer, a playwright, and that might explain some part of it. Also, I loved stories and books when I was a child, and that was in the age of pre-television. And so all we had was books, and I loved them, and they took me away. They were magic carpets for me. So maybe that has to do with it too. So that's all I can give you. There are things that you can explain, and there are things that you can't give, a really workmanlike, obvious, here's how to do it explanation.
Wow.
When you were coming up with Max and Ruby, rabbits, bunnies, where did that come from? Where did you see that as the vehicle to tell those stories?
Well, it all began 43 years ago, and I've
Oh,
forgotten. Max and Ruby were my own kids. That's the
okay,
important thing.
sure.
Oh,
I,
really? Max and Ruby are your kids? I wonder. Well, even though I didn't see those, but years ago, but Max and Ruby to me nowadays are just so boring. Just despite of what's gonna happen next. I'll explain more in boring jokester. Continue on.
draw animals better than I draw people, so I
Wow.
made it bunnies. But they were my own kids, and the Max and Ruby stories are true to the word of how my older child treated my younger child, and the
Mm.
wonderful dynamic between them. I should say this about Max and Ruby for your listeners, because
Yes.
everybody asks me where the parents are. The parents are not in the story because the stories are not about the parents. You put the parents in the story and it wrecks the story. When your kids are downstairs having a conversation between themselves, if you go downstairs, boom, it's ruined. It's over. So the parents are not there. But they're my own two kids, and that's the important thing to know about Max and Ruby.
Do you come up with all of the stories and the subject matters based on all of that, or do you end up taking the stories even further by wanting to use lessons to tell?
I try to stay away from what I call adult agendas. Kids smell adult agendas a mile away. They smell a good for you book. They smell a here's a lesson so that you can improve yourself. They just know and they hate it. They really do. Oh, I try to stay away from that. I will touch on subjects that kids find problematic.
Oh.
Timothy Goes to School is a good example of this. And Timothy goes to school and finds out on day one, in minute one, that he is not dressed in the right cool clothes.
Well.
And so I'll take problems from childhood, but I don't solve them in the way that people would expect. I solve them with humor. What I want is for the reader, the mother or father or granny or older sister, whatever it is, older brother, to point out to the readee, the child. I want the reader to be able to say to the child, "Hey, that happens in our family," or "That sounds just like you," or "This sounds just like your brother." This is what I want. I want books to be part of home life because my books are very much. I mean, children can be extremely funny. If the adults are not listening, children are hilarious together. And that's what I write about when the adults are not there. The minute the adults get into the picture, it becomes an adult book.
Well.
It's so true. And on that subject, do you also see that with creativity of children, that they all grow up, they all start out creative, but a lot of them lose it because either they're not encouraged or because of the adults. And then when they get older, maybe they think too much. Do you see that?
This is a very generalized question. You're talking about millions of children.
Sure,
The
sure.
thing that I'm concerned about listening to that question, number one, is that I wish all parents knew that in the first 5 years of life,
Oh.
if they read 20 minutes every day to their kids' brains are going to develop to be creative in whatever way God intends. Whether they become artists or engineers or baseball players, you've got to get the brain going. And unless you stimulate that child's brain with continual talking, explaining, teaching, and reading aloud at home, your child is going to lose it by 6 years old. The brain shuts down growth. That's the important thing. Kids develop talent. The talent to write stories is so complex. but it never really shows until the child is in the late teens or early 20s. I I encourage children to write stories and to learn to write, but as a professional thing, that takes a long time. However, there are talents for nursing and talents for teaching and talents for engineers and talents for athletes. And we all know that, for example, right now, as we speak, the U.S. Open tennis is going on, and I'm a big tennis player and a big tennis fan. Serena Williams is probably going to win this thing. And you know what? She has a God given talent that no one else has ever equaled. And so talent can be anything. Ability, creativity. Creativity is a spongy word. I never use it. The important thing for young children, for parents to know, is the brain development takes place from birth to 5, and you got to get in there. You got to get in there because if you don't get in there, it shuts down at 6, and that's when kids have trouble keeping up with schoolwork. They don't learn the way the stimulated kids do. The biggest leveler of the playing field
Wow.
between poor and rich, privileged and unprivileged, is books and reading out loud. That's it.
It's become difficult these days, right? With the computer or the cell phone or the kids are so attracted to the computers and to playing games.
They are, but that doesn't mean you can't go to your library and get books and read them because it's personal. And children know the difference between their mom reading to them and a screen. And they know that a screen is talking to everybody.
Wow.
And yes, it's colorful and exciting, but if you make a habit of reading out loud 20 minutes a day, it becomes a very important part of a child's life. If you want to give up and say, okay, we'll let the screen do it, you will accomplish nothing.
Right.
Wow.
Well, obviously, books have changed your life, and telling the stories, and I think it is such an amazing place um, that books can take you to. Do you see when you go to these library visits? How are the reactions with the kids?
They love it. They know when somebody's alive, and they know when it's a screen. And if it's a screen, they fool around, they punch their neighbor, they take their shoes off, you know, they
Yeah.
get involved
Yeah.
in what the
Yeah, right. Still, continue on.
texture of the carpet is. They want all these things, but they know when it's live, and they're smart. Kids are so smart, and I love the reaction of kids. And I try to involve them when I visit a library. I ask them questions. I don't just stand up there and talk. They like my video, and that's the screen end of it. But I get those kids going, and I talk to them, and I get them to talk about their families. I remember once I had a huge audience of 500 kids from kindergarten through third grade in a big school in Singapore.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
And I was introducing my latest book at the time, which is called Time Out for Sophie. And it's
Jeez.
about a very little 3-year-old who gets a lot of timeouts. But I asked the kids first, I said, does anybody here have younger brothers or sisters? And of course, all the hands go up. Does your mom give them timeouts? Yes, says 500 voices. And so then I asked, does it do any good? No, says 500 voices. So, yeah, I love it. I love interacting with them and getting them so that they want to talk too.
Wow.
And whatever age they are, I always learn something from them. I love their questions. I was in Texas it was it's right in the middle of Texas, and it's not San Antonio. It's San.
San Marcos?
Nope. It's one word. San. Oh, okay, it'll come to me. Anyway, it's a very nice city, and I had a whole bunch of kids that brought in through a regional teaching facility there. And I had all the questions that I usually get, like how long does it take to write a book, and what's your favorite color, and all these questions that I always get. And then I saw this little hand in the back of the classroom. This little hand, Mrs. Wells, Mrs. Wells. So I pointed. I said, yes, yes. What's your question? And this little boy said, do you ever lose anything? So I just said, oh, yes, I lose a lot of things. And then he said, and do you have to go to the store and get a new one? I just love the way their little minds work. I just love it.
Mm-hmm. Has some of those visits inspired books or characters?
Everybody asks me that. No, not particularly. I mean, that's not how it works. I'm a San Angelo.
San Angelo, of course.
No, it doesn't work that way. Books come from the most unusual things. Your entire childhood of your own, your children's childhood, their children's childhood, my grandchildren, their friends, everything I read, everything I've seen, all the information that goes to a human brain in a life is how people write books. And it doesn't come about because of a school reader. It comes about because somebody said something funny 7 years ago.
Wow.
And only now can I put it together. It's really very magical. It is not something that is easily explained, nor is it a process of something that's very clear. Writing is a very difficult process to explain.
So they just come, or do you actually say, okay, I'm gonna start a new project, or I'm gonna start a new book, or
You're asking me about process.
Oh well, I'm curious.
I know it cannot be explained, and don't pay any attention to any writer who tries to explain it, because it can't be. The stories come from the clouds. Why I will get a story out of something or how is absolutely unexplainable. There is no way. This is, if it were easy to explain, everybody could do it.
Oh, sure. Do you, when you're doing the visual side of it, is it coming? And I understand. Yeah, I'm just curious. Does the visual come from the words, or does the words come from the visual?
It's another process question.
No, I understand. No, I understand that. But I just become so fascinated by this.
Man.
I know it's like asking me, do you depress the clutch before you hit the brake or
Sure.
after?
Sure. Sure.
And if you're in neutral, do you need to depress the clutch again? No, it works copacetically. Sometimes one way, sometimes another way. Always the story first.
So when they came to you about Max and Ruby as a TV, did you ever see it happen? Did you ever see it becoming a TV show?
It was a surprise, and we talked about it a lot, and I felt that I had enough faith in Nelvana Studios, which produces Max and Ruby, so that they understood how Max and Ruby should be. And basically, it's very good television. It's wholesome. It's not the same as the books, because
Was again boring. Continue on.
I don't write it. I really have nothing to do with the TV program. I sold the rights, and they are good people up in Canada, and they agreed to a certain set of principles of Max and Ruby can do, and they understand them, and we've had a great time working together. But I don't work on the shows. I never have. It would be far too much for me. It takes about 100 people to produce a TV show, as you probably know.
Yes, I do, and they're completely different. I actually did work with some of the books that were done with Barney, some of the stories, and so I worked a lot with the publishing department with Barney, and I have such an appreciation. I understand how important books are, how important they are to kids and what a completely different medium they are.
Yes, because they require a reader,
Yes,
a live reader.
yes.
Well, anyway,
What I'm curious. So, what are the some other fun stories that you get from meeting the kids when they? What questions do they ask you? Some other fun questions they ask you.
oh boy, off the top of my head, um, they ask all kinds of wonderful questions and ridiculous questions, and a lot of them ask if I have a dog, and I say yes. A lot of them ask if I have a bunny. I say no, because the dog would eat the bunny within 3 minutes. Um, they are into favorites. They're all kids want to know what's my favorite food, my favorite color, my favorite person. I try to tell them, adults don't have quite as many favorites as children do, and it changes all the time. I so um, I can't off the top of my head remember too many wonderful questions more than I've told you. But I do enjoy the kids, and when they go off script, there's sort of a happy medium there where they're going to meet an author, and the teachers prepare them to ask questions of the author, and these are good questions, and they're always the same questions at every school. How long does it take to write a book? How many books have you written? All of these questions that instinctively the teachers want them to ask these questions because they feel that the questions are relevant to the author.
Mm-hmm.
And these questions, I can just hear my answers floating over the children.
Mm-hmm.
They really don't want to know that. They want to know if I ever lose anything,
Right.
if I have to go to the store to get another one. This is I do better with them when I do a writer's workshop, and I really like to do that. And I don't like to just be here as Max and Ruby because that's very young children.
Sure.
My favorite thing is middle grade readers and YA readers and novels, and that's what I love to do. And what I also love to do is present the 7 steps of writing success. I've broken down how to write for young people, and I've done this twice. It's a week-long program which I do with a teacher in Paris at one of the
Wow.
schools there, and it's wonderful. And I did it in Baltimore last year, and I would love an opportunity to do this in Texas. It's a 3-day program. It requires the kids to write ahead of time. It's 5th grade and up, 6th, 7th, 8th.
Which is
And
good
what I
news.
can do in 3 days is show them exactly how to write a paper, a book report, any kind of writing assignment that comes their way from now through college. I can tell them how to break it down, how to paragraph it, how to structure it, and how to finish it. And more than any single thing, how to get it so people don't put it down. So your reader wants to write it, and reader wants to read it. Write for your reader is the first step in the 7 steps. And
Wow.
we talk a lot about that, about how to get somebody to read what you write and not just hang up the phone. So that's what I really like to do more than anything. It's fun to go see kids in a group and
Sure.
give them my usual standard video, but what I've come to like and value more as I get older is really relating to the kids. And the 7 step program means they get a professional writer who's written 125 books to read their actual paper and comment on it. And then we go from there and we go into the structure, the 7 steps, and you paste them on your wall. If you follow these through middle school and high school,
Wow.
you will turn a B into an a C into a B, and an A into an A plus. So
Wow.
if you do this, so it's something of value, much more than just coming to see a kindergarten class because they will forget this and but the writing students don't forget. The writing students take away something of lasting value. And as I get older, into my 70s, I want to do something that has lasting value.
Do you see that though it feels like though so they start with Max and Ruby, and then they continue.
Well, they continue with loads of other books. Max and Ruby is very young,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
then they outgrow that, and
Sure.
hopefully get into some of my middle grade novels and YA novels have to be.
And do you feel have you seen that that inspires them to getting into the program you're talking about and into writing?
Oh, can you rephrase that?
Absolutely. So do you feel like from starting out reading at a young age that they inspired to write? And when I say writing, I'm not talking about becoming an author, but just the enjoyment of writing in their education.
That's I really like to answer things very truthfully.
Sure.
Two things are not related. They can, in a way, they are. If a child really loves stories and really loves books and has a gift to begin with, that child is going to write and write stories. But the skill of writing takes so much instruction. You know, one of the things that takes that amount of instruction is ballet. You have to work at it for years. And most kids have writing instruction as part of an overall English language or language arts, as they call it, program in their curriculum. They have the social studies, language arts, foreign language, math, STEM, science, all the various courses they take during the day. And they never have a dedicated writing course. Now, if you're 11 years old and you want to learn to really play the flute, you're not going to learn that in band class. So the amount of teaching of writing that any school can afford to put into a curriculum is limited. And this is one of the reasons why it takes them so long to learn it. What I like to try to do is shortcut that and say, okay, we're going to do nothing else.
Right.
Nothing else for 3 days, only writing. I'm going to think about it, talk about it, structure it, understand it, get underneath it, and figure out a way so that when you get a book report to write, you get a paper on the Civil War to write, or you get a story that they want you to make up, you know just how to start, how to middle, how to end, how to put it all together and wrap it up. And that's what they don't get time enough to learn in school. And then you have also in schools, in every school, you have a huge gap between the emergent writing student and the practiced writer. And it's very hard to teach kids, at such wide disparity. So you go to the general middle, and that is often too much for the child who doesn't like to write or is hugely challenged by it and needs a better program focused on an early writer. And it bores to tears the ones who are able to write and want to go further. It's a very hard thing to teach. And so I try to address that.
Well, it's so important what you're doing. I have seen. So I've got two teenagers, and everything is done on the computer now, and everything is shortened, and everything is the writing style is that they're taught, and I think because of computers, everything's so much shorter. Trying to ask you a proper question with this, but
sorry about that, folks.
I think what you're doing is more important than ever. Is it difficult when you're teaching these classes to get kids to understand the importance of it?
Well, what you have to do is teach word choice. And many people don't realize that a good and big vocabulary is necessary to keeping a reader's attention. If you write just short, clipped sentences that are appropriate for computer computerized or text messages, you're not going to hold anybody's interest.
Exactly.
There is one good part of it, and that is something called précis writing, which I learned in high school from a very good English teacher.
By the way, oh, and by the way, she's a career of Tiffany's go to school, which is awesome. Not I like her and Tiffany's go to school, but I don't like her in Max and Ruby, so which is stupid. Continue on.
And that is get to the point and eliminate too much wordiness. But that is just part of writing.
Sure.
A good vocabulary is what an educated person uses to convey a complete thought. And shorthand writing doesn't do it.
Mhm.
It's fine for please go to the store, pick up some eggs, milk, flour, but
Right.
not much more.
It's interesting because when I grew up, well, we didn't have all these things, and so I would write notes and letters and
We all did.
yeah, I mean that was so exciting to get them back, and
No,
um,
not
no,
but you know something, Carrie, I can't comment in an intelligent way on a world that has changed beyond my understanding. I can use a computer, I text message, I can find my way around an iPhone, and somehow manage to get on the Zoom meeting. I'm not a complete luddite. I'm not completely hopeless in my 70s, but I can't comment on the internet world or the. I don't use social media. I can't really comment on it because I don't understand it. I don't use it, and a lot of it is very off-putting to me.
mhm.
So I try to um, leave that to the younger set. And when something goes wrong and I can't figure it out, I will ask my daughter to figure it out for me.
Wow.
Well, I think it's important. I noticed with text messages and emails that a lot of times people don't get their point across. It goes in a different direction, and so many times I actually get on the phone with people because it's hard to get what you're trying to say, get the vocabulary out, and get what you're saying to them. There's so much misunderstanding um, that it just feels like it's more important than ever to be able to write.
I guess so. I hope so.
Um, do you have a favorite book that you've ever written?
I have a lot of favorite books.
Sorry to put so much pressure on you.
That's all right. It's not pressure. Um, Probably the best book I've written is Mary on Horseback. It's a
Wow.
short biography of Mary Breckenridge, who started the Frontier Nursing Service in Hyden, Kentucky in 1925. And in that book, it
Yeah, my papa's birth year. Continue on.
is everything I care about and my best writing. Also, On the Blue Comet, and My Havana, Lincoln and His Boys, Red Moon at Sharpsburg. These are all my novels, and I love them.
How do you find success in a story? Is it come from? I mean, no. I
It's
actually.
easier not to put it down. You write a story that is so compelling, no matter what it is, that your reader has to know more.
Do
So,
you do you
don't,
concern yourself with book sales and all of those things, or is it really
well,
if it means something to you, it doesn't matter?
are you kidding? I gotta put bread on the table. I gotta pay the electric bill. You know, writers don't live in some kind of airy fairy heaven where, oh no, we don't care about that. I gotta have book sales, of course. Why do you think I go out and speak at libraries and schools? I
Sure,
have to have an income. But of course, you notice that. You notice
sure,
what sells and what doesn't sell. But basically, I run it. I'm a commercial artist and I run a small business. I tell that to the schools, and they all go, "Oh, that sounds a little bit, you know, a little bit too commercial, a little too acquisitive, whatever it is." No, it's true. I'm a commercial artist. I'm not a fine artist. All
Well,
illustrators are commercial artists. And everybody who makes their living in books runs a small business.
Well, I'm also a photographer, so I understand the art aspect of it, and it is a challenge
hmm
um, between the art part and the commercial, the making a living part of it.
Doing what you love and paying your electric bill at the same time is a gift from God.
exactly.
It's rare and wonderful, and I've been blessed all my life to have that ability.
Do
hmm
you Are there stories you want to tell? And I know I'm coming back to the process for a second, but well, because I understand the create. You know, we did it with that purple dinosaur for a long time, and there was such a
hmm
there's stories you want to tell, and sometimes you don't find them, and how you tell them, and um, can you ever force a story? I guess is where I'm going with this.
Force a story.
In other words, if there's a subject matter that you want to tell, do you find a way to tell it, or does it just come to you?
This is a very generalized question.
Yes, it is.
It doesn't necessarily apply to most books. First of all, I don't necessarily get into subject matter.
Okay.
You know, I can't just say, I would like to write a book about ancient Egypt, so I'm going to find a way to do that.
Sure.
I start with a character. And if, a lot of writing is subconscious. A lot of my best work is done in the hour between 5 and 6 in the morning when the sun has not risen and I'm lying in bed and I can focus like crazy. I can focus the way I did when I was 30. And that is a rare time. How to do this comes about 5 years. So I know how. It was like, all I can give you is it's the example of something I did very recently, on vacation this summer. I had my two granddaughters, they're twins, and they're 15 going on 16.
Wow.
And where we were was near a golf course, and around the golf course was all of these dirt roads, miles of dirt roads, people's houses, driveways, and little stuff, but no shops and no police and no main roads. It was private. There's miles of dirt roads. So I took them out one by one to teach them how to drive. And at first, they would start the car and they go, ooh, and they'd accelerate. And I said, no, not so hard on the accelerate. And then they'd stop and go through the windshield. Back up in a jerk. But they learned two things, both of them. They learned how to operate the car, not how to deal with traffic. That
Wow.
I won't teach them, but how to operate a car so that you know how to smoothly accelerate, how to back up, how to look when you back up, how much to use your backup camera, how to use the brakes, and how to smoothly use the car so that it is your servant, because a car is. And after about probably 10 hours, they both got it. And I hope that that goes into their eventual learning how to drive. Then on the way home from vacation on Route 95, where I'm going around incredible exits and merges and going at 70 miles an hour, I realized, it takes an awful lot to get to go on a major interstate highway at 70 miles an hour, exit off your left, drive in city traffic, or drive at night, or drive in rain, or drive in snow. This is what I mean about writing. You have to learn. And once you do, you forget about the process. You just know. And that's what it is to be a writer. I don't ever remember learning about how to use the brakes. I just know how.
Oh man.
How has storytelling changed over the years, or has it for you?
No,
No.
no.
Wait, no?
Okay.
Stories are stories, and if children are interested in them, I will tell them.
But do you, because I thought it was interesting as you're saying, learning a car, boy, it's changed. We didn't have backup cameras back then. I know brakes and gas pedals hasn't changed, but now we have computers and we have these things. Do, is a story can it be taught? Do you
Driving
try?
hasn't changed.
Well, no, driving hasn't changed. You're right. Do
Backup cameras or not, it hasn't changed anything. You have to learn how to be comfortable behind the wheel of a car and feel confident so that you
Oh,
know what you're doing. And if you don't have a backup camera, you learn to turn your neck 180 degrees. So
wow.
so you so I guess the same thing with storytelling. It's timeless.
yes,
It's do you realize the impact you've had on children, or do you think about that?
no,
Children, young adults, and your readers over the years. Do you think about that?
no, it was a surprise to me. I was like, wow, look at that. All those people have read those books. Or here I've had this tremendous personal meaning in the family. I get mail. It's amazing to me every time. It's amazing. Because my whole view stops when I finish a book and it's published.
Wow. Is it been from something you were looking to make an income to changing people's lives? Do you
Think about it that way.
Wow.
can you think of a story that you've heard from a reader of how you touch their lives? Does those type of things inspire you?
Yes, or they don't inspire me. I don't use the word inspire. They comfort me and they support me. I have gotten many letters from Japanese Americans who were
Wow.
once children in America in a fairly inhospitable situation, and how much the book Yoko meant to each one of them.
I did not know Yoko's a thing.
Wow.
That
Yoko
it was on Tiffany Goes to School, but that's just me. Continue on.
navigates an American classroom with kids who are truly cruel. One of the things I recognize is how conformist children are. They're big conformers. And the minute you do anything out of line or you do anything unusual, they'll go right after you. And we think of our children as loving and gentle, and that's how we want them individually. But in packs, they can be quite different. And so that's what Yoko is about. It's getting picked on for bringing sushi to school, and it's about the of teachers' attempts to mitigate that, which don't work because they never do. Because childhood in a classroom in a school, which is where I've set most of my books, I think of it as having, because as a parent I thought of this as having this big Stephen King like lucite dome fall over the school.
Wow.
And when that lucite dome falls, you can rap on it and knock on it and do whatever you want as a parent, but you never get in because they run the whole scene. The kids do. And it's not always the way we would want it to be. And that's where my stories come from. Under the dome.
Do you have favorite authors?
Loads, but I don't name them. I have loads of them.
Do you
Wow.
have favorite
Favorite is
story that you
what?
like to read?
Excuse me?
Do you have favorite stories you like to read? Subject matters.
Oh, yes, I read very adult books. I can't read children's books or YA books. I never do. I read a lot of thrillers. I read a lot of
Wow.
history.
Oh, so that means Max because we have thriller horror. Joking. Continue on.
I can't thank you enough for being on this show, Rosemary.
I am thrilled. You asked me some wonderful questions. We had the time to develop some subject matter, Carrie, that usually an interviewer doesn't go there. And you are a wonderfully stubborn questioner in a terrific way, because you don't mind when I say, no, I can't answer that. It was a great interview.
Well, Rosemary, thank you so much for being on. I know how much Max and Ruby means to people, but I also know how important it is what you're doing teaching kids and young adults to write.
Well, anybody can reach me on my website. So when COVID is not so dangerous, I hope to take up my traveling life again.
Well, and we'll hope you'll come
Exactly.
back to Texas again as well.
Oh, I always love to come to Texas. And it's so easy to fly there from New York.
Thank you so much, Rosemary.
You are welcome.
And thank you for watching Purple Roads. Remember to keep your eyes, ears, and your heart open, and you'll find your purple road.
So that was Purple Roads episode 39. What do I think about this episode? It was amazing? I don't know. But anyhow, I don't get how he got Max really in the mix. I think I like her in Tiffany Goes to School, which is awesome. The show on PBS with Bookworm Bunch, which I saw as a kid. But, and then Mother Goose books and everything. I don't like her in Max and Ruby, which is stupid, but my thoughts and my honest opinion on Max and Ruby, by the way. Anyways, guys, double episode of react to episode 555. Now, excuse me. I gotta react to a special event, which is gonna be a Apple keynote, which is gonna be on in like less than an hour. But stay tuned for the next episode, which is gonna be a Purple Roads podcast episode 40, which is on Shiny Time Station. But until next time, so Joseph, goodbye, peace out, baby. Get more reacts, guys, very soon. Till then, Joseph out. See ya.
Given unto me this life I'll never take for granted, and given all the time I fail to really understand it, I never sought to meet the maker of reality, the one who gave the life that which is always happening, but I tried all the time. I ask, why me? Why was I the one to see things as I do under the moonlight and the sun? Perception is the question, and the giver holds the key.
And I found another illustrator to be, who became very good friends, Susan Jeffers.